The temperature has fallen to -30 degrees Celsius. You are alone in the forest. The nearest permanent shelter is days away on foot. Night is coming, and with it, 12 hours of darkness in air cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes. You have no tent, no sleeping bag, no modern gear. All you have is what your ancestors taught you, and what you can gather in the next 2 hours before the light dies. The question is, will you survive till dawn? This was not a hypothetical scenario for the indigenous peoples of northern North America. It was what they lived with. It was routine to them. Across the subarctic forests, the Great Plains, and the Arctic coast, Native Americans traveled, hunted, and lived in conditions that would kill an unprepared person in hours. They survived through an integrated system of technology, material science, and cultural knowledge refined over thousands of years. Every piece of the system addressed a specific threat, and every technique had a reason. You see, the human body loses heat in 4 ways: conduction, convection, radiation, and evaporation. The first defense was clothing. The Inuit, Athabascan, and Plains peoples wore layered garments made from caribou, moose, bison, and seal. But the genius was not in the material alone, but also in the construction. The inner layer was worn with the fur facing inward, trapping a stable boundary of warm air against the skin. The outer layer was worn with the fur facing outward, providing wind resistance and allowing snow to shed rather than melt. This dual-layer system created an insulating envelope that minimized convective heat loss while managing moisture, the silent killer in cold environments. The clothing itself required advanced preparation. Women prepared the hides through a process called brain tanning, using animal brains to chemically treat the skins. The fat content in the brain emulsified and penetrated deep into the collagen fibers of the hide. This transformed the material into something flexible, breathable, and water-resistant. They did this because a hide that has not been properly treated becomes stiff and brittle when it gets wet and then dries. And in sub-zero conditions, that stiffness could mean a death sentence. But the brain-tanned hide remained supple, preventing the garment from failing when exposed to moisture from snow or sweat. This was biochemistry applied to survival. But even the best clothing could not compensate for the ground. The frozen earth beneath the snow acts as a thermal mass, radiating cold upward. Lying directly on it triggers conductive heat loss, and the body's warmth is drained away through direct contact faster than it can be generated. This is why modern campers use insulated sleeping pads. But the Native Americans? They used spruce boughs. Before settling for the night, travelers harvested armfuls of spruce branches and laid them in thick, overlapping layers on the snow. These boughs created a compressible mat of trapped air between the sleeper and the frozen ground. And since air is a poor conductor of heat, the springy structure of the branches maintained that air gap even under body weight. This simple technique broke the conductive bridge between the human and the earth, preserving core warmth throughout the night. However, this wasn't luck. It required knowledge of which trees provided the right density and flexibility, as well as how thick the layer needed to be. The third defense was terrain. Native groups selected winter campsites with the precision of engineers. Low-lying areas near tree lines, valleys sheltered by hillsides, positions that blocked prevailing winds. These were not casual choices. Wind strips away the thin boundary layer of warm air surrounding the body, a process called convective cooling. Even a modest wind can drop the effective temperature by 10 or 15 degrees. by positioning camps in naturally sheltered microclimates. Indigenous peoples created zones where the ambient temperature was measurably higher than the surrounding open landscape. Hunters and travelers read wind direction, cloud formations, and animal behavior to predict storms and adjust their routes accordingly. Their survival was not reactive. They anticipated everything. Fire provided the fourth layer of defense against radiant heat loss. Native Americans used a technique called the long burn fire lay. Logs were stacked in specific configurations, sometimes parallel, sometimes perpendicular, to create a slow, even burn that could last 16 hours or more. The arrangement allowed oxygen to flow while maximizing fuel contact, producing steady, radiant heat with minimal intervention. And when the fire was no longer needed, the embers were banked. Hot coals were covered with a layer of ash and dirt, which insulated them and slowed combustion to a near halt. The coals remained alive beneath the surface, preserving heat overnight. In the morning, uncovering them eliminated the need to restart a fire from scratch. Some groups also heated stones in the fire, wrapped them in hides, and placed them beneath their bedding. These thermal masses radiated warmth for hours, extending the fire's effective range long after the flames died. But none of these techniques mattered without fuel for the body itself. The human metabolism is a furnace, and in extreme cold, that furnace burns faster. A person at rest in sub-zero temperatures can require twice the caloric intake of someone in moderate conditions. Therefore, due to this, Native American winter diets were rich in fat and protein. Pemmican, a mixture of dried meat, rendered animal fat, and berries, was the ultimate survival ration. It was lightweight, shelf-stable, and packed with energy. The fat content was especially critical, as fat releases energy slowly, providing sustained warmth rather than a brief metabolic spike. Without adequate caloric reserves, even the best insulation and fire technique would eventually fail. The sophistication of these systems is matched by the cultural framework that ensured their transmission. Among the Koyukon people of interior Alaska, the cold was not merely a physical phenomenon. It was understood as a conscious, sentient force, a spiritual being capable of responding to human behavior. Elders warned that boasting about one's resilience could provoke it to manifest dangerously frigid weather. This belief was not superstition. It was a mechanism for enforcing discipline. Overconfidence in extreme environments is often fatal. By framing the cold as a conscious entity that demanded humility and respect, the culture reinforced the meticulous preparation and cautious behavior necessary for survival. Similarly, the buffalo became a symbol of endurance. In winter storms, buffalo do not flee. They lower their heads and face the wind, enduring the blizzard with patience. This image became a cultural model for human behavior. Survival in the open required the mental ability to hunker down and withstand discomfort without panic. Physical techniques could fail if the mind broke first. The Buffalo Principle transformed cold exposure into a test of character, reinforcing the psychological resilience required to execute survival techniques under stress. These methods were not unique to a single group. Plains tribes used bison hide, Athabascan groups relied on caribou and moose, and Inuit specialized in sealskin. But the core principles remained consistent. Defeat conduction with insulation, defeat convection with terrain, defeat radiation with fire. The universality of these strategies suggests they were inherited and refined from shared ancestral knowledge, possibly carried across the Bering Land Bridge by the first peoples to enter the continent. The knowledge systems that enabled this mastery are called traditional ecological knowledge. They represent generations of observation, experimentation, and cultural transmission. Today, scientists increasingly recognize their value. Indigenous observations of sea ice behavior, animal migration patterns, and fire ecology provide data that modern methods alone cannot replicate. The answer to the question posed at the beginning is this: survival was not improvised. The Native American engineered it. Every layer of clothing, every spruce bough, every banked coal represented a solution to a specific physical problem. And the system worked because it was complete. Remove one element, and the whole structure weakens. Native Americans did not conquer the cold. Instead, they understood it, respected it, and then built their lives around it with a precision that modern society is only beginning to appreciate.